Welcome in. This is Chiefs Chase. My name is Mike Bassano, and thank you so much for joining me here on another edition of the MidWeek Blitz.
From the 2, Hunt in for the touchdown.
The MidWeek Blitz is where we break down everything Kansas City Chiefs and get you ready for the upcoming game. And this week, it is as big as it could possibly get. In Week 6, it's Chiefs-Lions, Sunday Night Football at Arrowhead. The Lions are 4-1 and atop my NFL power rankings as they are a juggernaut team. And the Chiefs at 2-3, coming off of a very tough loss in Jacksonville. They're in desperation mode, so it can't get bigger. And we'll discuss this game throughout the entire show. But first, we'll reach back to Monday night just for a moment. Also, there's a rookie running back takeover happening in the NFL. Just an absolute takeover, and we'll discuss it and what the Chiefs will add to it coming up in just a couple of minutes. But first, the Chiefs' loss to the Jags is one of the hardest losses to take in a very long time. Because when you dissect it, you go, well, what do they change? What can they do differently? And the only real answer is play more disciplined football. Don't turn the ball over in the red zone. Don't have as many penalties. Play crisper. And that's all stuff that you can only really address during practice. So there's not a lot of strategy change the Chiefs can have, or even a lot of things you can learn strategy-wise from that Jaguars game. Everybody played fairly well, save for the mistakes. So really the issue is more mistake-laden than anything, and that makes it tough to digest. Because the Chiefs have never been that team who had too many mistakes, who had too many penalties, who couldn't get out of their own way. That's never the Chiefs. So the reason that loss against the Jags is so disheartening for so many fans is because it didn't make any sense. Sometimes you got to chalk it up to the football gods, and sometimes you got to go back to practice and get a little more disciplined. And that's going to be a big thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Getting more disciplined in practice, getting more disciplined in their day-to-day. And maybe it's doing less media, right? I mean, ESPN had that Jason Kelce sit-down. That was after the Chiefs had already gotten to Jacksonville. So you have Mahomes, Kelce, and Andy Reid all sitting down with Jason Kelce for a special interview. Did anyone else do that before the game? I'm not saying to stop doing all the things, and I understand there's a bunch of stuff outside of football that really matters for these guys. But there's a lot of other teams not doing the amount of press that the Chiefs do. So you at the very least have to ask the question, is that getting in the way? Because when it comes to discipline, that's what this team's losing. If you right the wrongs from a discipline standpoint, the Chiefs are undefeated. I mean, that's a fact. The Chargers game, undisciplined mistakes throughout that game. That was one of the sloppiest games I've seen the Chiefs play in a long time. They lost by 1 score. Philadelphia Eagles. Travis Kelce, ball pops off his hands, goes to the other team, changing the tide of that entire game when the Chiefs had a chance to really put the champs on the ropes. Ended up being an interception. They lose that game. Patrick Mahomes, inside the 5 on a 2nd and goal. Quick slant to Juju Smith-Schuster. He misses Lloyd breaking out from his blitz position, and it's a pick 6. These are massive mistakes, but the problem is they're happening from guys that you never thought they would happen from. This isn't Jawan Taylor only making mistakes. Jawan Taylor is also a mistake machine at times and has been an issue for Chiefs fans pretty much, I think, his entire career. Because that's what happens when you constantly make penalties and everybody sees you make those penalties. And then against the Eagles, Jawan Taylor got blown off the ball. So I know people look to that, but we kind of expect those mistakes from him. We expect those mistakes from younger guys. But from Mahomes and Kelce to be two of the guys that have made massive mistakes that have cost the Chiefs games in 2025, yeah, that's going to create some animosity. And I hate to say that because, they've gained a lot of stuff, but I think fans are like a little deflated right now. This is one of the hardest losses I've ever seen this fan base take, probably because the guys making the mistakes are the guys who never make the mistakes. Now, Patrick Mahomes is still in the running and actually shockingly high when it comes to MVP odds, and we'll talk about that coming up here in just a few minutes. But first, I think the big question moving on from this loss is how. How do you expect the Chiefs to be better after the fact that they just made a lot of mistakes? How do you expect the Chiefs to bounce back when all you can look at is say, hey, you have to correct mistakes? It's not a talent issue. It's not a strategy issue. It's just a mistakes issue. So how do you say? To me, it's faith. Faith is the thing that's going to keep Chiefs fans coming back to this team. And I think this team has earned that faith from the fan base. Because you can't say, change this strategy, play that different player. The fact is, the mistakes are the problem, and the mistakes are all across the board. So how do you kind of reel yourself back in and say, okay, Sunday Night Football, let's get ready for the Lions? Faith. And I think that this team, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce specifically, have earned that faith. And Chris Jones, too. We'll get to his situation coming up here in a little bit, too. Because he addressed the final play on defense where Trevor Lawrence scored the touchdown and his lack of effort or lack of doing anything. It looked to me one way. We'll get to it here in a few minutes. But first, the rookie running back takeover has begun. You have a lot of big-time players right now stepping up as rookies, and I think Brashard Smith should be one of those guys in the conversation. He hasn't had the numbers yet, but that's only because he hasn't gotten the touches yet. From the touches we've seen from Brashard Smith, I think every single person from the Chiefs organization and all the way through Chiefs Kingdom has been incredibly impressed with what Brashard Smith has brought to the table. He looks like a big-time shifty back that would work beautifully in Andy Reid's offense. And from the limited time we've been able to actually see Brashard Smith, he's been great. He's been a joy to watch. And somebody who shows undeniable flashes of big-time ability, especially for a 7th-round pick coming out of SMU. So there's a lot of talk, like Croxley Merritt over in Washington. He's a 7th-rounder, too. He's playing very well. Obviously, Ashton Genty, he seems to be the only player who's doing the right things in Las Vegas. So even though there is a lot of talk about this running back class, I think one of the guys coming out of this running back class that is under-talked about right now, but will be very talked about in the very near future, Brashard Smith. By mid-season, I think Brashard Smith is a big part of the Chiefs' offense, without question. Right now, he's an overlooked rookie running back, but from what we've seen, we haven't seen a lot of him because he's only gotten those limited touches. Andy Reid likes to slow play rookie running backs and not put them in a lot of positions to fail to elevate their confidence, which is great. But based off what we've seen from Brashard Smith this early on, I think everybody's excited to see what we're going to see next from Brashard Smith as he gets more touches and becomes a bigger part of this offense. Now, there's a shocking thing about this Chiefs game against the Lions that feels off, but it also makes a lot of sense at the same time. And it comes down to Vegas. We'll explain what's going on there in just a few minutes. But first, the MVP odds. Patrick still has a very good chance at winning MVP. In fact, Vegas has him as the second favorite behind Josh Allen, just above Baker Mayfield, who I think a lot of people are getting on that bandwagon for Baker going to the MVP. But the fact is, despite the record, Patrick Mahomes has had a really good season. He had one big mistake, and which was a really good play by Lloyd against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But for the most part, what I think people are seeing when they look at Patrick Mahomes is a guy that already has all these great deep ball throwing ability. He has some great numbers. He's had some games where he's been a great running threat as well. And when he gets Rashee Rice back, all bets are off. So if you're looking at the MVP race right now, you absolutely have to put Patrick Mahomes up in the conversation because of what he could be later. That's why I think when Vegas takes those odds and they throw them out there, it's not about who has the best chance right now. But if you gave me great odds on Patrick Mahomes winning the MVP right now, I feel like I would be a fool to not take that bet and give him the benefit of the possibility of winning the MVP. And that's why he's second behind Josh Allen.
They fake it to Pacheco. Pressure on Mahomes. And did Brown get both feet down? He did.
Well, one guy who's not as high on that MVP's odd list, but I think he will be soon, is Jared Goff. Chiefs play against Jared Goff this Sunday night. He has 12 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So let's get to the Lions, and we'll get deeper into that offense here in just a few minutes. But the big thing here is the Chiefs are a favorite. The Chiefs are a favorite against a Goliath in the Detroit Lions, a team that's scoring 34.8 points a game and only giving up 22.4 points. It's a juggernaut team, the Lions, yet for some reason, the Chiefs are the favorite. Now, why is that? I'm not in Vegas's head, but my guess is a team that's at home in prime time with their back against the wall, with a history of coming out swinging every time their back's against the wall, especially Andy and Patrick. Every time it feels like this team is about to slip or have a bad season, Andy and Patrick flip a switch, and suddenly the Kansas City Chiefs attack on all cylinders. And I 100% expect that to happen Sunday night against the Lions, and so does Vegas. The Chiefs opened as a favorite. Despite the records difference, despite the point margin difference, it doesn't matter when you have Andy and Patrick with a backed into the corner, extreme motivation at their backs. Because it's incredibly important for the Chiefs to get to 3-3 before Rashee Rice returns. If you're 2-4, that's a tough hole to dig out of. 3-3 with Rashee Rice coming back with fresh legs. This team looking healthy, looking good despite the discipline problems. That's the only thing the Chiefs are dealing with is discipline problems. So then you add Rashee Rice back into that fold. If you get those mistakes ironed out, you get those discipline issues with the turnovers, the penalties, you get those eliminated. And then you bring back Rashee Rice? Well, now the Chiefs have every single possible reason to be a juggernaut team. They do. Because where's the weakness? Pass rush to an extent. But I think, let's get to Chris Jones now. I think we're going to see a different Chris Jones for the rest of this season. He is clearly motivated by what happened against Jacksonville. He wants to make up for it. And a motivated Chris Jones is terrifying for opposing quarterbacks and really everyone else on the offense. The Jacksonville Jaguars double-teamed Chris Jones most of the game. There's a reason for that, because Chris Jones is a wrecking ball in the backfield that if you let him get going, your entire team is screwed. So I expect to see a big game from Chris Jones and big motivation going forward from Chris Jones that could end up really helping out the Chiefs pass rush, because right now the Chiefs pass rush is just okay. It's not terrible. It's not on life support. George Karlaftis is still getting home quite a bit, but it is something that is a real concern for the Kansas City Chiefs. So you have to have a guy in there who's extra motivated, because I don't know what else to do with it, right? You have some guys getting home. Charles Omenahu's playing better than he's getting credit for, by the way. He is. I know a lot of people want to talk down about Charles Omenihu. He's playing better than people are giving him credit for. However, the Chiefs still need a better pass rush. There's too often you're watching a game and you're going, my God, he has all day. It's too often. It's not as bad as it was early last season before Omenihu came back. I want to point that out. Right? Charles Omenihu was out with an injury last year, and the Chiefs' pass rush fell off a cliff. It was a disaster. This year, it's not off a cliff. It's just mediocre. And it's a thing you hoped the Chiefs would come in and be much better at this season. Fact is, they're not. Gelati, we've seen him get some snaps, but he hasn't gotten pressure on a consistent basis. We've just seen some misses at the pass rusher position. What about King Felix out of KSU? That's a first-round pick. When's the last time we saw him on the field? So they need help at pass rusher, but I think in motivated Chris Jones, along with Charles Omenihu and George Karlaftis, you can still be decent there. Now on to the Lions offense. Also, little national news. We have a lot more to get to with the Chiefs and Lions, including Dan Campbell talking about Patrick Mahomes. We'll get to that later in the show. But there's a craziness going on in Cleveland as usual that we have to touch on. We'll do that in a few minutes. But first, this is a tall order for the Chiefs defense, man. This Lions offense, not only do you have Jared Goff, who's thrown 12 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, an offense that's scoring almost 35 points per game, and a 1-2 punch with Gibbs and Montgomery that's probably one of the most dynamic in the entire NFL. Oh, by the way, you also have one of the NFL's premier wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's having a great season. He has 41 catches, 407 yards, and 6 touchdowns. This is a huge order for Steve Spagnuolo and the defense, but I think one of the biggest tests they're going to see all season, and one where they have a chance, an opportunity to make a monstrous statement. And I 100% have faith in this Kansas City Chiefs team to bounce back, because why wouldn't I? How many Super Bowls have they won with this coaching staff, with these guys in the leadership position? They've earned the faith. They've earned the respect for all of us to rally behind the team and say, you know what? Let's go get those Lions. I don't care what the numbers say. It's Arrowhead on Sunday Night Football. Nobody comes in there and gets it easy. So this is a big chance for the Chiefs defense to make a monstrous statement, especially after last week, where I think they played better than the numbers show. And really, the numbers aren't that bad. The pick six weighted that score pretty well, right? The numbers weren't that bad for the defense, but obviously that final drive is one that they would want back. So now they have a chance to go out and make a statement after that game to be even stronger, even better. And I think they will. We'll get to what Dan Campbell had to say about Patrick Mahomes, which I love Dan Campbell. If you watch the lives at all and see me watch, however many games I watch in the NFL, if you watch the lives, I'm a big Dan Campbell guy because I always want him to go for it on fourth. Every single team, every single time. Fourth down is just another down to go for it. Punters. Just ruining the game. I'm half kidding. But we'll get to what Dan Campbell had to say about Pat Mahomes coming up in just a few minutes. But first, big news out of Cleveland as they traded Joe Flacco. If you follow me on social media, you saw I already weighed in on Flacco and the Bengals. I think, if you didn't see it, quick recap, he makes them dangerous. They're not a Super Bowl contender, but they are no longer an easy win. Joe Flacco can light it up on any given day. So the Bengals, I think, very much win that trade, getting Joe Flacco in and getting in a guy that can carry their team a little bit. So I think that's great for the Bengals. Before the Browns, they make this trade, and this is where things get weird. They refuse to name Shedeur Sanders the backup, despite only having 2 quarterbacks. They might elevate Bailey Zappi from the practice squad, but you have a guy who's on your active roster. He moves into the number 2 spot, and you go, yeah, we're not quite sure if we want to name him that backup yet. At this point, Cleveland should just let Shedeur Sanders go. They hate him. I mean, clearly, they don't like the guy. They do everything they can to embarrass him constantly. Since the day the Cleveland Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders, they've done everything they can to make him look bad. And Shedeur, yeah, he hasn't helped himself at moments, like with the mime thing. Yeah, people are going to see that in a poor light. But at the same time, what do you want him to do? It's Cleveland. Everybody who goes there fails. Everybody who goes to Cleveland is a complete disaster. Until what? Until they leave Cleveland. So just let him go. If you hate the guy so much that you're going to embarrass him publicly by not even naming him the starter or the second, but you're not even naming him the backup. When you only have 2 quarterbacks? Clearly you don't even like him, so why do you keep him around? Is it just to punish him for trying to dictate where he goes in the NFL draft? Is this like a collusion idea to send him to Cleveland and have him just punish him? Because that's what it feels like. So if you're not going to even give him a chance, I don't mean a chance to play. I mean a chance to even be a player on your roster who's respected. If you're not even going to give him that chance, get rid of him. You clearly don't want him there. So send him somewhere else. The Giants seem fun. I think their quarterback room's pretty full, but they seem like at least a fun organization. Send him anywhere else, anywhere other than Cleveland. Because Cleveland is where football careers go to die. That's a fact. It's a fact of life. Ask Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was casted away in Cleveland even after taking them to the playoffs and winning a playoff game. Remember when Baker and the boys came to Arrowhead and they lost in the divisional round? That was divisional round, right? No, there's no way that was conference championship. That had to be the divisional round. Yeah, divisional round. That's right. That wasn't good enough for the Browns organization. So they got rid of Baker Mayfield, and since then, they've been turmoiling around in hell, which is exactly where they belong. They're dragging Shedeur Sanders in there. If you're ever asking the question, is Cleveland the problem? The answer is almost always yes, it's Cleveland. They're the problem. Terrible organizations just make me feel better for the Chiefs. I watch all of these organizations who are absolute trash, like the Giants, who could have traded Saquon Barkley in 2023, but decided to let him walk in 2024 to a division rival. Or the Cleveland Browns, who are just great at drafting controversial quarterbacks and then driving their career right into the ground to the point where Baker Mayfield had to go play scout team defense in Carolina just to resurrect his career. That's what Cleveland does. And thank goodness the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't care if they lose the rest of their games, at least that's an organization that has proven time and time again that they know what the hell they're doing. Because there are so many that are clueless. You want to know how Josh Simmons dropped to the end of the first round so the Chiefs could get him? There's your answer. Clueless organizations across the NFL. Makes you feel very, very grateful for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, Dan Campbell talks about Patrick Mahomes. We got to get to this. Also, one player from for the Kansas City Chiefs that I think has to have a big, big role on Sunday night. It's important, especially against the Lions. We'll get to him coming up here in just a few minutes, and a bunch more when it comes to this game. We're all on this game for the rest of the show. I'm fired up. All right, so Dan Campbell, Lions head coach, was asked about Patrick Mahomes this week, and he said in regards to blitz disguises and trying to get after Patrick Mahomes, he said, quote, he could smell a rat from a mile away. If you're going to disguise, boy, it better be worth a Grammy. I love Dan Campbell because he means an Oscar, but it's funnier that he doesn't know. He just thinks award. I don't know. But he's right. I mean, the Jags, when they stopped coming after Patrick is when they started to do better. When they came after Pat and left one safety high, that's why Pat was able to roll out, find Tyquan Thornton deep, open up those deep passes. That's what Pat does well. When you want to come after Patrick Mahomes, he will make you pay every single time. So Dan Campbell knows a little bit better than to do that. I would expect to see the Lions play a lot of two safety coverage, shell coverage, take away that deep ball, and force Patrick Mahomes to be consistent with intermediate passes in order to beat them. So what does that mean? It means everybody's got to get better at their intermediate routes and finding open space so Patrick doesn't have to fit the ball into these tiny windows. That's what it comes down to when it's intermediate passing game, and that's where the Chiefs at times this year have struggled to be consistent in their intermediate passing. So my guess is that's exactly what the Lions are going to do this week. So that's the big focus for the Chiefs, is to hit those 5 to 15 to 20-yard passes with consistency so they can keep drives on schedule, because the fact is Dan Campbell's too smart to let you get too many big plays. You're going to have to nickel and dime these guys. That's the deal when you play against a great defense like the Lions and a great defensive coach like Dan Campbell. Now, there's one player we want to see get more involved in this Chiefs game with the Lions because it's important. This is a guy that absolutely needs to get involved because I think he's a huge energy guy. And that is Juju Smith-Schuster. You got to get Juju more involved. The fact is, when Juju Smith-Schuster makes a catch, when he's more involved in the offense, the Chiefs have a better energy because Juju's a big energy guy. Think about it at your job. When there's somebody around that everybody likes, that everybody feeds off of, and when good things happen for that person, you're like, oh, all right, let's go. The morale for everybody rises. Juju Smith-Schuster is one of those guys on the Kansas City Chiefs. So get him more involved just to get the energy of everybody moving, because clearly in games where Juju's getting involved, the Chiefs' offense seems to be humming a lot better. So that's a guy to watch against the Lions, especially because the Lions are so deep. Getting the ball to Juju, who's like your fourth option, you're going to have a pretty solid matchup, and that's going to be a huge key to victory for the Chiefs this Sunday night. All right, well, we will kind of crystal ball look at what happens after the end of Sunday night's game to wrap up the show here on the Midweek Blitz here on Chiefs Chase. But first, Travis Kelce's still a great tight end. But he's got to start going downfield, man. These little quick throws. The Chiefs are falling in love with the quick throw to Travis Kelce. And it does gain about 6 to 8 yards. But you got to stretch the defense a little bit with him. And I realize teams are giving Chiefs short passes. Do you know why the Chiefs are getting these short passes? Why teams are just giving it up to them? Because they're waiting for them to make a mistake. They're waiting for them to have a back-breaking penalty that destroys the drive, or to have a turnover, or some big mistake that screws everything up. Because this year, the Chiefs' MO on offense is to have a lot of really good plays and then a big penalty, or a lot of really good plays and then a bad turnover. So that's why teams are letting the Chiefs have those short passes to Travis Kelce that go for 6 to 8 yards because they're just waiting for the mistake to happen. That's why the discipline tightening up, getting everything crisp, that's how the Chiefs get things right, and it's how they can elevate to a juggernaut. Because right now, all the pieces are there. It's just the impending mistake that always happens that's holding them back. So that's why teams are giving up those short passes. The second the Chiefs become super consistent and they stop making the big mistakes, stop making the big penalty that kills the drive, well, then the Chiefs are going to end up being unstoppable. Because these 6 to 8 yards, they're great until you get a 10 to 15 yard penalty, right? So that's where I think the Chiefs can use Travis Kelce more in that intermediate passing game. Because when he stretches the defense, it opens up everything for everybody. And also, just on a side note, we'll see how Xavier Worthy's ankle looks. Last week, he looked a little ginger. I'm concerned. It's a sprained ankle, clearly. And if you've had a sprained ankle, you understand exactly why it hurt so bad when he had it, not necessarily rolled, but he had it tweaked. When you tweak a sprained ankle, that is some pain. Man, that is some serious pain. Tweaking sprained ankles is hard. Man, that's hard stuff. And he did. He tweaked his sprained ankle, but then, after like 2 minutes, it kind of goes back to the dull pain you were feeling before. That sharp pain is gone. So hopefully this week, Xavier Worthy's ankle will be better and he won't be as held back by it. Because that's a huge worry. Of course it is for this team. A huge worry. Xavier Worthy's ankle has to be right. That's what it's going to be all about, man. And obviously, if he's healthy and he's able to go at 100%, this team's totally different. But I think it would be unrealistic of me to expect him coming off of a short week where his ankle looked very ginger, that he would be much better this week. But it's big. They need him. Even at 50% right now, Xavier Worthy's better than most of what the Chiefs have offensively. So they got to keep him out there. Just hang on, man. Get to 3-3. And you know what? That leads us right into the final conversation that we're going to end the show with. A crystal ball gazing. If the Chiefs win, that changes everything. It's a big win against a Goliath team that beat the Chiefs the last time they were at Arrowhead on opening night. I think we all remember that catastrophe, Kadarius Toney. That'll exercise the Kadarius Toney demons, hopefully stopping so many of the mistakes that have plagued the Chiefs this year and put Kansas City right in line to drive that train forward. 3-3, getting Rashee Rice back. The offense is instantly going to get better. The defense will have a shot of confidence after stopping the top scoring team in the NFL, and everyone will be looking back at this going, that was the moment the Chiefs turned the season around. So this is, without question, as much of a must-win game you can get in Week 6, without question, for the Kansas City Chiefs. But if they win that game in any kind of convincing way, even if they do it close, it'll be a big deal. But if the Chiefs can come out and win in a convincing way over the Detroit Lions, I think it is such a huge deal. It would, because the team right now, it's mental. 13 penalties. It's mental. And a lot of those penalties were ticky-tack. I 100% understand that, and I've been on record of saying I think the NFL called a lot of those penalties to keep the game close. They like close primetime games. So I don't expect a big blowout against the Lions because the NFL hates blowouts, especially in primetime. The way they called that game with the Jaguars, it wasn't just against the Chiefs. The Jags got calls against them too. As soon as the momentum started to pick up and it looked like they could get ahead by a couple of scores, boom, there's a flag. Happened to the Chiefs after they went up 14-0. Suddenly, flags don't get thrown against the flags don't get thrown on the Jags. They only get thrown on the Chiefs. We saw it. So with that kept in mind, I kind of seen a similar thing happening with the Lions, which means the discipline has to be on point. But a win completely revamps the season and puts everybody back in the conversation. It puts the Chiefs back in great conversation to be a big part of this season and a big part of the playoff picture, the Super Bowl picture going forward. It's not like you have a bunch of great teams in the AFC especially. I mean, out of my Power 5, my top 5 rankings, number 5 and number 4 are from the AFC, and that's a 4-1 Bills and a 4-1 Colts. Who else 4-1? The Jags? You got 3-2 Chargers, 3-2 Broncos. Nobody's great. That's a huge upside for the Kansas City Chiefs. Nobody's that good. So the Chiefs are going to have a chance to really make a run here, but it's got to start this week. It really does. This is as close to a must-win game as I can remember in Week 6, especially for a team with so much talent. Like, the Chiefs don't have all the injuries the Ravens do. The Chiefs have a really solid football team. They just keep making the mistakes. They just keep making the big mistakes to kind of shoot themselves in the foot. If they fix those, and I think we should all, as I said at the beginning of the show, we should all have faith that the Chiefs fix these issues because they've earned that. They've earned the faith. They've earned the benefit of the doubt that these mistakes, these discipline problems where it comes to getting turnovers, penalties, they've done enough over the years for us to be able to believe and have faith that those things can be fixed as early as this year. So we'll do a live on TikTok for the game as we've been doing. Sunday Night Football, Detroit Lions. This has been the Midweek Blitz. Thank you so much for having fun with me and hanging out with me today. It's been a good time. It's been a good time. It's hard after the losses, but I think I've enjoyed it. So I hope you've enjoyed it as well. All right, have a great week. Have an amazing weekend and enjoy the game. I hope to see you on the live.